Hello and welcome everyone to the OVHcloud Startup Program Showcase. I'm Costa Mavroulakis, the CEO and founder of Impact Ventures and the SuperConnect series, who are co-designing today's events. Impact Ventures co-designs some of the leading startup and tech initiatives around the world. We also scout innovation for a number of organizations in the private and public sector, including OVHcloud. Over the past 3 years, we've run over 17 tech pitching events across 9 cities across the UK, where we matchmake people together with those that have particular challenges based on mutual need. Since June 2021, we've run 3 SuperConnect series showcase events on all verticals, including AI and FinTech earlier this year. We also co-designed the North-South MedTech Summit in November 2021 with the OVHcloud Startup Program. And we've also helped to bring in a number of startups and scale-ups, some of which are pitching here today that have joined the OVHcloud Startup Program. Those include Sonic Pocket and Yepic AI, who you'll hear from later on. We'd also like to say a huge thank you to the OVHcloud team for selecting Impact Ventures as its Startup Program Partner of the Year 2021 in London last week. It's a real honor to work with the whole team, so thank you very much. The OVHcloud Startup Program Showcase is a global startup pitching competition to support cloud-hosted digital product or service startups around the world. Last month, we opened applications to any startup around the world who could apply by simply uploading a pitch deck. And then we announced our 5 finalists earlier this week who will be pitching to our global jury. These include UImpact, Anadata, Interest Protocol, Polymore, and iPredico. You'll soon hear their pitches to the global jury, who will decide who will be crowned the OVHcloud Startup Program Showcase winner 2022 and walk away with a €10,000 check, along with one-to-one coaching and 10 free super connections facilitated by Impact Ventures. For today's event, we have 4 areas that you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen. The stage is where the roundtable discussions and the pitches will primarily happen, and the announcements later on. In the sessions area, we also have the Startup Clinic from 3 p.m. UK time that gives startups and anybody that is in the audience today a chance to present their challenges or present their business to the business experts that we have from OVHcloud, Value Squared, and Boardroom Advisors. So if you want to join that session, please simply go to the Startup Clinic at the required time and share your video, and my colleague Andrea will be able to support you. The Expo area also has a number of Expo booths from our partners. So if you want to connect with any of them, just simply select the SuperConnect Me button, and one of our team will facilitate that introduction after the event. And also, if you want to connect with any other attendees, there will be a networking area that opens later on, where you can network with people that are randomly matched together by the platform. And if you want any technical support for anything, please head to the green room in the sessions area, where again, my colleague Andrea will be available to support you. So we are now going to kick off with the first part of our agenda. And we're going to bring on Sylvain Roury, who's the Chief Sales Officer of OVHcloud, who will give an introduction.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you, Costa, for the introductions. I'm very happy to be part of this event and honored to be part of the intro part. There is a fantastic program ahead of us, so I will be short. First of all, I would like just to congratulate all participants and thank all participants, and obviously wish the best for the 5 that are to compete ahead of the time now. I wanted also to highlight a couple of things that are truly important in my opinion. The first one is that we have the highest admiration for entrepreneurs and for people that are driven by passion or by an idea to make it emerge and to try to become successful in their business. It's just a gift, in our opinion, of those people to really try to make their ideas emerge and successful to serve citizens, users, customers around the world. What we believe in as well is to make sure that those ideas are relying on solid foundations of technology. As you know, cloud technology is at the heart, at the foundations of any innovations moving forward around the digital world. But those foundations, those roots that are cloud, needs to enable people to innovate freely, And this is a concept that I would like to highlight that is very important for us, the concept of freedom. As entrepreneur, you have a fantastic idea, you have a brilliant project. You just want to be able to innovate freely with a technology that is efficient, performing, but also enabling you to freely move ahead with your project and not lock you down. This is extremely important because I'm part of a generation, as maybe the color of my hair could tell, that has big hope and fantastic outlooks for the future thanks to technology. And nowadays, when we look at some of the biggest moves in the technology, there is risk management. And I want to highlight that, thanks to our program and thanks to our technology, we want to promote the freedom for entrepreneurs to really make sure that their idea is for the best and still under their control at the time they emerge and scale with their business. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that we are living in a world where we cannot put aside also the carbon footprint that we leave with our digital innovations. And this is a very important investment and a very important topic at OVHcloud. And we are very proud of the progress that we are making. We've been pioneering some technologies and some R&D in order to cool down the data centers without air conditioning, which is obviously reducing drastically the footprint of electricity usage. And our plans, not for the 2030 or 2050, but to the 2025 are extremely aggressive. And I think, if that were to summarize what I wish everybody to go with is, one, let's keep this freedom at the core of our innovations, and let's make sure that once we innovate based on the cloud foundations, we do it with the minimum carbon footprint and the highest level of responsibility for our planet. So thank you again for having me and for this opportunity of saying a few words. And again, I wish everybody a fantastic afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for that fantastic introduction. And it's been an honor and a delight to have you join us. And we've got many other members of the OVHcloud team joining us today, as well as Michelle, your global CEO, later today. So thank you very much. Fantastic. So we'll go to the next part in our agenda. So we're going to have a roundtable now, and that roundtable is about what investors look for in startups and scale-ups. It's chaired by our newest partner, Startups Magazine, and we'll be joined by Cedric from Polonaise. We'll have Sandy from ABGI UK, Mateusz from RKK VC in Poland, and Eleanor from DSW Ventures. So we'll be bringing on our...
Hello, everyone.
I will hand over to Anna to begin the session.
Thank you so much, Costa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a discussion on what investors look for in tech startups and scale-ups. As kindly introduced me, my name is Anna Flocke, and I'm the editor at Startups Magazine. And I am privileged today to be joined by my lovely panel. So I'll just go around and give a brief introduction, and then I'll kind of leave the more in-depth intros to yourselves, guys. So I'm joined by Mateusz Bodio of RKK VC, Eleanor Boardman of DSW Ventures, and Cedric Torrison, founder of Polonaise. I think we should be joined by Sandy as well, but we'll crack on, and if Sandy joins us, then she can jump in. So, guys, there we go. Hello, Sandy.
Sorry, I was here, but I just had the camera switched off.
No worries. I'm also joined by Sandy Findelay, Regional Partnerships Director at ABGI UK. So you've just joined at the right time. We're just going to do brief introductions, a little bit about yourselves and your companies and what everyone does before we launch into the questions. So Mateusz, I'll bat it over to you first.
Right. So my name is Mateusz Bodio. I'm a managing director and founder of RKK VC, a single family office venture capital. We are on the market for 2 years. We have 20 investments, including SpaceX, KarmaCheck, and other interesting companies globally. We are deep tech investors, so we are searching for SaaS businesses with strong components of AI, ML, and computer vision. A bit about myself. I'm a lawyer from the educational side. I got 4 companies. I got a few exits. So this entrepreneurial way led me to the venture capital world. So yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll just follow on. So Cedric, you're next on my screen. Welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves and Pollenize.
Yes, so I'm the CEO of Pollenize and the co-founder of Valued Squared with a partner coming later. And what we do, we are actually a fundraising partner. So you'll see in the industry people doing debt services and investment readiness. And basically that's help the conversion to get more investors. When you speak to them, you increase the probability for them to invest in your proposition. And you have also connectors, people who have a network of people and introduce you to them. We bring the two together with our partner and we make sure that we really create value, which is why we created Value Squared as well, all the way through and increase really the value for investors as well and make the relationship work really well between the investors and the startups, from saving time, making sure that the proposition is well tailored for them and everything. So that's why now 50% of our deal flow in terms of startups come directly from the investors themselves, family offices or angels, sometimes VCs as well. And in terms of deal flow as well, we about 70-80% of our deal flow is in ESG, and because that's growing and also very fit with very much the approach. And also we're unique in the fact that we do look at G, not only E and S.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cedric. A man wearing many hats, obviously. Eleanor, and a fellow female, please tell us a little bit about yourself and DSW.
Yeah, so I'm an investment manager at DSW Ventures. So we're a VC based in Manchester in the UK, and we invest across all sectors into UK businesses with a focus on the region. So businesses outside of sort of London and the Golden Triangle, including Oxford and Cambridge. We invest sort of at the post-seed, pre-Series A stage is how we like to describe it. So that sort of scale-up funding to really get you to the next level. We've got quite a wide range in portfolio. So we've got everything from the consumer goods business to B2B software to deeper tech from university spin-outs. So quite a wide remit from us.
Amazing. It's great to see. And it's always interesting because obviously London's like the hub. So it's really nice to see people focusing on outside of that as well. And finally, last but certainly not least, Sandy, so lovely to have you join us. Tell us a little bit more about yourselves and ABGI.
Thank you very much. Before I start, just an apology. The lighting's not good because I was sitting in my conservatory and realised you couldn't see anything. The sun's so bright today, which is nice for Edinburgh. So I'm Partnership Director for a company called ABGI. We are an international consulting group. We help clients accelerate their innovation activity, and we have 3 ways of doing that. One is we help clients identify and secure appropriate forms of funding. We help them with digital solutions for design and manufacture, and we help them with their IP strategies. My main reason for being on the panel today is that prior to joining ABGI, I run my own consultancy for 21 years, working with new starts and tech scale-up businesses. A large part of that was working with clients on making them investor ready and writing investor ready business plans.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, panel. I'm joined by a lot of talent here today. So let's kind of delve into the topic then. So specifically looking at tech startups and scale-ups and what investors are really looking for. Sandy, I'll back the first one to you if you don't mind. As a tech startup, if I was a tech startup looking for funding, what are the first steps that we should be taking when it comes to starting that funding journey?
I think the very start of it, from my perspective, is about identifying how much money you need, what you're going to do with that money, and how long you need the money for, because that generally influences where you look for that money. So depending on what stage you're in the development of the business, it will influence whether you're looking for equity investment or grant funding. So it's always I think it's easier if people can identify how much money they're looking for, where they're going to use it, and how long they need it. That then at least gives them a starting point for a discussion with any potential investor.
Amazing, thank you. And kind of flipping that, Matthias, when tech startups are looking for funding and they're taking the first steps, as an investor, what are you looking for their actions within their first steps? What should they be doing from an investor's point of view?
Right. So, so that's in a way, I will continue what Sandy said. So it's very important because I'm talking to hundreds of startups each year, and I see that, and I'm quite surprised that they are still not ready to talk to the investor because they not know how to spend money and where this financial round will lead them. So the question like, so where do you want to be in next 1 or 2 years? What your revenue should look like? And that's super important for the funders to prepare for such questions. And it's also important to create bulletproof pitch deck and financial model. It needs to be correlated. So it may be the situation that financial model will say something different than pitch deck. For example, you can read on financial model that they need, let's say, 2 million euro. In the pitch deck, they are asking for 4 million. So the question is why? Why do you need so much, right? So that may be some large red flags for us investors that the funder actually doesn't know what he needs and ask for the investors. So that's quite important. And one more thing regarding the operational side. It's that we in RKKVC, we are really detail oriented, and it's important for us to see that the funder, even in early stage, they prepared in a very precise way data room. So the better data room is, the better opinion VC may have about the funder, about their detail orientation. And another good side of good data room is that the funder may receive less questions from the venture capital, right? Because everything is there. So so that's also, let's say, they need to invest their time, but the ROI will be they have less questions, and the VC can analyze quicker their companies.
Yeah, thank you. I guess it's the investors want the best for the startups as well, don't they, as well as themselves?
Yes, and just one more thing. It's like insider news here from the venture capital. So I said that we are analyzing hundreds of companies per year, and it's easier to classify startups and think with templates. So that is why you can see a lot of company startups on YC demo day batch. And they have like 40 seconds for a pitch, and you have like hundreds for those 2 days to hear those pitches. And you can see that they are marking themselves as Uber-like or Airbnb for camper vans. And it's much easier for us, for venture capital, that we can quickly grab the business model idea and process this faster, assess it faster. So that might be a good advice here as well for the funders.
Just being crystal clear, definitely. Thank you. Eleanor, how do you know as a startup what is the right type of funding for you? And does some type of funding suit different businesses better?
Yeah, so I think there are sort of a few different areas of funding. You've got obviously equity, which comes in a few different forms. There's debt funding, grant funding, and also R&D tax credits, which I think a lot of startups sometimes forget about. So sort of going through them in order. Equity is sort of great for all businesses at sort of quite all stages. It's it comes in different forms. You've got angel investors who can come in at the early stages. You've got VCs that can come in a bit later on, and there are different dynamics around those different types of investors as well. But obviously, there are different things that come with that. There's terms with VCs, obviously dilution, which is a big consideration for a lot of founders. But equity works, in a lot of different scenarios. Debt can be a little bit difficult to raise at the earlier stages. It's typically more appropriate for businesses that are a little bit further along in their journey, and can complement equity quite nicely. For example, if you've got working capital requirements, that kind of thing. Grant funding, again, I think that sort of depends on the type of business that you are and the sector that you're operating in. So, you know, if you're a business that grants are available to, then they're brilliant because they're non-dilutive, really great source of funding. But it's also important to consider that actually sometimes grants have a specific purpose. They're for, you know, a certain project. So it's, you know, important to consider that you might not have the same level of freedom with that money. So maybe it can come in alongside equity to, you know, give you sort of almost double up in some cases. And then R&D tax credits are just great for all businesses. That, you know, if you're not maximizing them, if you're not forecasting them, please do. To founders, they're so great. They're probably the most certain form of funding that you can put in your forecast. And yes, it's just a really great scheme, and that can come in alongside whatever the sort of route you choose to go down.
Oh, wow, thank you. There's obviously so much. When you think of funding, you just think of raising capital, looking for investment. There's so many different routes to go down. It's not just black and white as that, is it? Cedric, can you ever be not ready to raise funds? Like, can it be too soon? And how do you know if it is the right time? And is it ever the right time to turn investment down?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where you are. If you are really an early stage startup, if you are an SME that never raised money, which is also an important part of now our activity, is a very different problem. Is you know, how much, what do you need to be ready? So I think in terms what we need is definitely a strong USP, a strong story that comes with it. If you don't have, especially if you don't have the traction. And the wrong people. So you need those things in place. The more you have, the better it is. And what we recommend is, if you unfortunately, you know, if you don't have your fund to start a little bit, you probably need to convince friends and family to put like 20, 30, 50K and decide where you should spend this money, you know, to create a bit of an MVP. But you should also consider money, if you have not raised money yourself, to work with professionals who can help you, because I mean, otherwise you're going to waste everybody's time, investors' times as well. And that's why we got so many propositions floating around and you know, and wasting everybody's time. So yeah, being ready is very important. Having a good narrative, a good, you know, and your USP is very important. If your USP is not clear, you can spend the rest of your life writing a deck. It's never going to be good. So, you know, that's very important. And then, you know, the traction, that's interesting. When the traction kicks in, I've seen situations where the USP is not maybe that as important, but you attract different kind of investors than people who are more maybe speculative, you know. So, for example, when I used to cover Snapchat, I mean, investors used to come to me and say, we don't get this Snapchat thing. It's terrible. I mean, the interface sucks. It's very terrible. But say, well, look, everybody wants it, so let's invest. You know, so that's become a different story. But you need a lot of traction in order to get there.
So my next kind of area of conversation was going to be on trends. Do you see that a lot, Cedric? Obviously, kind of just adding to your point. If a lot of investors are investing in one certain thing, even if they are unsure whether they should, sometimes they jump on the bandwagon and invest in something that they maybe not know a lot about?
Yeah, well, especially when it comes to ESG, that's, I think a lot of investors, the mistake they make is, okay, we've seen social media, we've seen blockchain, we've seen this, okay, next thing is ESG, let's go for it. And they think, I think it's another vertical. And that's where a lot of, I think, money is going to be lost. ESG is not a vertical. It's a lateral thing that's going to affect everything. So definitely there's a lot in that space there. And you know, yes, you're right. There are fashions that comes, and 2 years later it's no longer interesting, or you come too late. You know, there are, of course, there are some some issues with that come directly from the regulation. So, for example, next year in ESG, more companies will have to report their pollution. So suddenly, a lot of people invest in any company bringing measurability into pollution, because a lot of it is based on benchmark and totally off. So they need really good. So yes, it's going to be interesting. They also fashion in terms of, as well as the structure around. So, for example, family offices, you know, and I still hear that people, oh, family offices don't invest early stage. That's not true. What they do, they put a small ticket and do a follow-up round and put you with KPIs. So that's a new fashion that has come over the last two years since COVID, basically.
Yeah.
You know, so that there are definitely a lot of trends in many ways.
Thank you. So sticking to trends, one of my questions was going to be, what are the biggest trends that we're currently seeing in the tech sector? Obviously, if any of you have got opinions on this, because I'm sure you're seeing different things, please jump in. But I'll pass it over to Sandy first of all. Have you seen any big trends or anything currently in the tech sector that everyone's kind of going mental for? Oh, Sandy, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's always trends. I think every year people are looking for the next big thing. I think in terms of tech, there are a number of things that stand out, and I think the big 5 things that tech writers are hitting us with. So AI, and alongside of that, automation, virtual reality, AR, ER type projects. Around the Internet of Things, or IIoT, and then the other area for me would be big data. Those are all very busy spaces just now. Lots of companies with lots of proposals, and I think they're areas that a lot of investors in particular will be looking at. They're also, within the UK, they're of significant interest to UKRI and Innovate UK, who are the main source of grant funding. So those would be my trends or trendy topics at the moment. The other one that I think people have to be aware of, and it kind of follows on from what Cedric was saying, is there's a lot of attention, a lot of interest in the space sector just now. And again, the space sector isn't necessarily a vertical. Again, it's a lateral, because we tend to find that the space sector involves chemicals for things like coatings. It involves advanced engineering for manufacture of satellites. It involves big data. So companies should just be aware that while there's a lot of writers touting the space sector at the moment, it's still very much a lateral space, and companies should be looking for investors in their own particular discipline or technology or science, I think.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight. Matthias, have you seen any other key trends? Is there anything that's like, you know, going crazy at the moment, or anything over the last year or so?
Yeah, so we were crazy as a venture capital in 21, chasing space unicorns, future unicorns. So I totally agree that space is a big thing. Was actually, because right now the ecosystem, venture capital ecosystem, a bit changed, especially on later stages, and we can see it's definitely happening in States. It's about to happen in Europe, and the thing is that we don't know where is the bottom, you know, like the bedrock. So I'm a bit afraid of that. But in terms of trends, as a deep tech fund, we are focusing on AI. So the thing is that we think that applied AI would be a next thing. And just a short explanation that applied AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that brings it out of the lab into the real world, enabling computers and robots to execute real tasks. And we really believe in this applied AI that will, in a way, be around us, around businesses, human beings, etc. So we are focusing right now our scouting resources around the AI, applied AI, with its contextualization of business models, industry processes, as well as improving the way we interact with everything, everything around us.
Amazing, thank you. And there is a question pop up, but I just want to finish on the trends before I ask that to you, Matthias. Eleanor, I wanted to get your opinion on specifically in the UK. Is there any specific tech trends that you've seen over the past year or coming up this year maybe that we're seeing investors kind of look to within tech?
I think there's been a lot of investment. I don't know if this is just exclusive to the UK, but there's been a lot of more investment in sort of life sciences, med tech, that kind of thing. And I can see that continuing over the next sort of 12 months, couple of years, especially as we're sort of like, I think we're all aware that there's sort of a recession on the way and the economic headwinds are coming. So those are the sorts of businesses, while, you know, everything's sort of a bit choppy on the top, they'll be sort of investing and hopefully emerging once things are a little bit calmer. So that's, you know, it's been a really strong sector so far, and I can see it continuing. I can also see, you know, for the same reason, a little bit more caution about consumer propositions. We're already sort of starting to feel that a little bit ourselves, saying, well, you know, is this going to be the first thing that someone will cut out if they're feeling the pain a little bit? So I think that's going to be a really big factor quite soon and over the sort of next 12 months and beyond.
Amazing. Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, I'll just ask the question quickly. It was a quick clarification from you, Matthias. Someone said, is it better to generate questions / curiosity from the investors, or better to generate as fewer questions as possible?
So it depends, but being totally honest with you, I have never met investor who didn't ask a single question and invest in the company. So I mean, I love to know funders. I love to know the business ideas, everything about it and them. So I prefer to ask as many questions as it is possible, but please do not leave like open sentences that we need to think what this guy meant or something like that. So if investor asks many questions, I think that's a good sign.
Amazing. Yeah, I think questions are a good thing.
Yeah.
I love asking questions personally. That's why I'm the moderator. In terms of more general, so I'll ask about tech, but it kind of can be more generalized now. What are some of the hardest challenges for startups when they are looking to raise investment, whether that be in tech or in other sectors? Cedric, I'll pass this one to you first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, just on back on the previous topic, I think PropTech 2.0 is very important. So PropTech 1.0 was basically Airbnb bringing digital into the property market, and it entered the market only slightly. Clean tech coming into property, that's a big story. With the help of digital, obviously, that could be a huge market. So much money is stuck into the property market. The interest rate is going up. Good time for the property investors to invest in clean tech. That's it. Coming back to your question, the challenge is, well, is of course the difficulty is often they come with us with no money. So and they think that they can start with really no money. I think you need to have raised a bit of family and friends. I understand that is very, I would say, unequal, because not everybody can have friends who can put 20, 30K in the business to start with. And that's really important. That's why as well, I think it's important that funds start to move more early stage, because the earlier stage they come and the more equalitarian the access to startups and this kind of career is possible. So it's very important that, you know, but yes, they need, if they don't have resources, they need a very good narrative. And I think that's and why it's important to have a good narrative is because a narrative doesn't cost much. You can motivate people a lot. You can check your narrative with people around. It's much easier to check a narrative than a technology. You know, does it work? And you can entice talents to work with you for equity. So it's really important to get that early. And if you got that, gives you this charisma, and you know, you roll. It's a bit like a snowball. You know, at the beginning it's really hard to roll the ball, and as you get bigger, you know, things come to you. So really, I think that's get your information and keep a budget. You know, I think when I look at all the business plans, I see, oh, great, you put marketing expenses coming before your revenues. And you understand that you need to spend money in order to generate revenue. But you have not put any expenses in order to raise money, and you are not an expert in that field. How are you going to acquire this knowledge of going through the difficult journey of creating a proposition in front of investors and that convince people? If you don't know it, you're going to spend 18 months wasting your time and everybody's time. So have a budget. You find a good professional. I know it's difficult, but that's the quality of a founder, is to know to recognize talents and people who waste your time.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. Matthias, did you want to add anything to that? Have you seen a lot of particular challenges, and has there been any kind of more challenges or newer challenges since kind of the dreaded C word and the new life after COVID?
So in a way, last year it was much easier for founders to fundraise. It was much easier because it was a lot of money on the market. The venture capital were raising like huge amounts of dry powder, and most of the VCs started to invest via Zoom calls. And it was like 2 years ago. For me, it was something very different, very like impossible really to invest via Zoom call. And right now, regarding the challenges, I think it changed. Like everything changed because of the later stage companies, as I was saying, will find it very difficult to find a cash, and the same with seed stages companies. In a way, the valuations of those startups are down for 15-20% in seed stages. So seed is not bulletproof anymore. And on the other hand, we have inflation and the wages of IT professionals are still growing. So I don't to sound doom here, but it's not easy anymore for the founders. That's the main clue I wanna say here.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's good to be real as well. Like, it's not all doom and gloom, but it's just kind of being realistic and being truthful with people about the current situation.
Correct, but still, it's not said that like the venture capital market like disappeared. We are still on the market. We have half of our budget already allocated, and we are still looking for the new investment. The best companies will always find the cash and capital. That's for sure.
Definitely.
Could I just add something there? Because I think there's something people need to look at. It's great to put pressure down on valuations, and but there's a limit to that, because if the valuation goes down too much, that means the founders don't have equity enough to lead the business to Series B, and that's actually the investors shoot themselves in the foot by doing that. So there's a fair limit under which you can't fall under, and that's something you need as a founder to calculate, to say, look, if I go below that, we lose both of us, and it's not.
Cedric, that's exactly, you're perfectly right. And sometimes we see the valuation based on capital needs to deliver, let's say, MVP, to deliver some product or first revenue. So that's exactly what you're saying. And if the venture capital is smart enough, they're gonna say like, listen, guys, you shouldn't go below, let's say, 10 million euro, because we need to think about the next step, A, B, C round, etc. So that's exactly what's happening on the market, to have these, let's say, thresholds, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. I am conscious of time, so I'll start to kind of wrap this up. But I wanted to quickly ask Eleanor, is there any certain locations, I know you guys are kind of UK based, but is there any certain little hubs or little spots that are really popping up in the tech industry, or to like watch out for, certain locations that are becoming really good for the tech startup world?
Yeah, I think as we were saying at the start, obviously everyone knows that in the UK, London is the best place for investment. The data shows that it's the best place for investment. But there are loads of regional hubs that are popping up. I think, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, they've just announced the Northern Gritstone. So there's a lot more money around for Northern businesses. 2 of our last 3 deals were in Midlands businesses. We're seeing some really great stuff come out the Midlands. So I think there are lots of different pockets popping up from all over the UK. And I also think location is just a lot less relevant now. Before COVID, we most of our portfolio was fairly local to us, and now that we do everything online, it has its downsides, and it's still really important to meet people. But it's just so much easier to have those initial calls and have a much further reach. So I think it's much better for businesses outside of London who can actually access investors all over the UK rather than just sort of within 2 hours of where they're based, which I think used to be the case.
Definitely. Thank you. And finally, Sandy, obviously we've been talking about these changes and kind of the challenges that we've all seen recently and in the past few years. It's been a lot going on. What do you think, without getting your kind of crystal ball out, and I'm asking you to predict the future here, what do you think that we can expect to see in terms of investment when it comes to tech? Not necessarily trends, but like, what does the future hold? Is it looking positive? Hang on, Sandy, you're on mute again.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Yeah, I think there's plenty of money around. I think the big challenge going forward in the next year or two will be around matching the money, matching the needs of management teams with the money. So I think one of the issues that commonly comes up is smaller companies are keen to take money and they don't do any analysis of the needs or the wants of the investor. So, how long is the investor in for? When's their exit? How much money do we expect them to put in? Are they a patient investor? Just get the chemistry right between the investor and the company. So I think in the future, there will be money around. I think that money will become much more discerning in the short to medium term. And I think the companies, the management teams need to work much harder on getting that good match. I think the other thing in there is making sure, is it really investment you're looking for? As Eleanor said earlier, there's a lot of other areas where you can take money from. For companies who are nearer to market, debt might actually be an easier option than equity. Again, the cost of debt's going up, but it just provides less restrictions than equity might or grant funding might. So, I think there's always money around.
Yeah.
It's just how hard you have to work for that money.
We've just got to work a bit harder now going forward. But I think that's the case with everything since the last few years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, panel. It has been such a pleasure. You have given us so much insight this morning. I think we're bang on time. So thank you so much for having us. And back to you, Costa.
Fantastic.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And we encourage all the panelists to stick around and join us to see the other finalists and the startups pitching in the funding sessions later on. So we're now going to head over to bring on our finalists, and we'll be joined by our judges, who include Roman Grieux, Head of Corporate Finance at OVHcloud, Eva Gerez, Director of Programs and Global Partnership for Venture Cafe Warsaw Foundation, and Nicolas Romeliu of the Global Lead of Partnership and Ecosystem Marketing at OVHcloud. So thank you for joining us, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Costa.
Fantastic. So we are going to bring on our first company to pitch. So we have Leslie Lee, co-founder and CEO of OVHcloud in Berlin. So we should be putting on Leslie, and I will be taking time. Just bear with us 1 second. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you want to share your screen, and you've got 5 minutes, which I will be timing now.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, everybody can see your screen.
Fantastic. Hi, my name is Leslie. I'm the founder and CEO of OVHcloud. Sustainability is a very hot topic right now. You hear buzzwords like ESG, SDG, but what do they all mean to us? The big question everyone cares about is actually, how do we benefit from sustainability so we can do well financially and, more importantly, do good? You might say, can't I just rely on the ESG or sustainability scores? Right. Here are the scores of Tesla from 4 different rating providers. They come in different shapes, colors, out of black boxes. And the market is now flooded with so-called sustainable investments, but there's no standardized and consistent way to evaluate them. When you want to put your money into sustainability, here's what you have to deal with: the complex financial reports and the cumbersome investment platforms. And what the end investors need right now is a solution which allows them to digest all of this complex information so they can take quick action to align their investments with their values. The majority of the investment products are still being sold by the traditional financial industry. So we developed a B2B white label solution for banks, fund platforms, and financial advisors to help them to empower their end investors to become more sustainable. Now, I want you to imagine investors like you and me could start investing sustainably as easily as shopping online or browsing for movies. How about that? And this is exactly what we have built in UImpact for the past year. Let me show you how we do this. In this example, there are over 1,000 funds on this platform. On the left-hand side, the users can set their sustainability preferences on environmental impact, social issues, and economic growth. And these 3 categories are built on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. On the right-hand side, we've grouped the products into categories, and users can explore the funds in a Netflix style. This is designed to maximize the product's exposure through multiple user touchpoints. With every change of the parameters, you see the search results change accordingly. In addition, the investors, they can balance their blend of sustainability and financial goals by using this financial return slider, so they can do well and do good at the same time. Within a few clicks, users now have a tailored shortlist of funds. Now, what's even more exciting is the level of details the investors can dive into. Let's take one fund. Investors can now explore the fund in an intuitive and interactive way. Here you see the balance of the fund between economy, social, and environment. Watch this. You can zoom in to see the underlying impact of the fund in terms of its SDGs and the underlying companies contributing to that impact. Instead of pages and pages of financial reports, we transform the information on the fund's composition, the performance, sustainability metrics into this engaging experience that brings complex information to life. Data we collected shows that when using our solution, users make much faster and more sustainable investment decisions and are more likely to invest higher amounts with a longer holding period. From day one, we analyzed the whole user journey of the investors. Our clients will then gain deep insights into their end investors and have the potential to empower them to become more sustainable over time. Our product is now ready for rollout as a white label solution, and we already have a strong pipeline of interest. Last year, we closed the funding round from an established player from the German sustainable investment market. Now we're raising 2 million to give us 18 to 24 months runway. Our founders have combined over 25 years experience from the world's largest banks. We also have expertise in data analytics and behavioral science. So we have the founder market fit to solve the problem. People asked us, what do we want to achieve in 5 years? I say, in 5 years' time, I don't want anyone to talk about sustainable investments anymore, because every single investment will be sustainable by default. If you share our vision, we want your support, we want the prize money, so together we can make this vision a reality even faster. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. That was right on time. So yeah, you have another 5 minutes of questions. So Eva, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you for presentation. And I would like to ask, because your team right now is 3 people, right? And are you
Co-founders.
planning to also build a bigger team?
That's right. We have 4 people full-time working on it, and we have 3 people part-time. So the idea is, while the 3 people part-time is help us to accelerate the development process. So expansion will be building up the in-house development team and data analytics team.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Nicholas, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this great presentation again, and I see the product behind. But just one question that I have is, do you already saw some, let's say, positive early traction in regards to what you already achieved?
That's right. So we finished the product literally about a month ago. And now we are talking to the biggest retail banks, the biggest fund providers on proof of concept work. So we will have announcements coming up for partnership. We're using multiple ways to bring our product to market. For example, partnering with sustainable fintech providers, and that there was some announcements coming up. And our existing investor, the SDG Investments, they are bringing their current clients cross-sell for our product. And then
Okay.
you see me on big stages like Money 2020. I was in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago. We were one of the 20 startups pitching on the big stage, and then we managed to push forward with one of a few of the biggest clients in this in this field.
Thank you.
And Roman?
Yeah, super. First, super mission. My question is about risk sensitivity, because I saw ESG, environment, and return, but and so in some countries by law, you need to monitor the risk sensitivity. Is it in your app where a customer can say, I want to invest in this kind of environmental, I want to get this kind of return, but that my risk sensitivity, because then you need to protect them from that too.
That's right. So in my demo, I showed it really quickly, but they were presented by Chili's. So if you see on the fund cards, so from 1 to 7, that indicates this risk level. So if our client would like to have that, we can integrate that as part of the selection tool. So then in combination of finding the most of the funds with the most return, they can set the boundaries for the risk sensitivity.
Great, super.
Any more questions? We still have about 2 minutes left for questions.
Maybe one more if I can. Go ahead, Eva. We do round.
Thank you. Where do you see your solution in 10 years? Because you mentioned 5 years, and everyone will be like really conscious about that. But in 10 years,
so the front end, which is already been built, is the starting point. And I mentioned about the behavioral science behind that, right? So imagine once the tool is being integrated as a white label solution with a bank, for example, what our analytics can do is to establish the types of users they have. What we want to do is to enable them to be more sustainable and more confident as an investor. And this is how we ultimately mobilize this private capital towards sustainability, towards the rightly sustainable products. So in 10 years' time, it's just a natural, it's a natural way forward that everyone come up and they would be, every single product will be embedded with sustainability profile in there.
And you are
rather than having the suspect
Germany,
of
right?
greenwashing.
Yes,
we're based in Germany right now.
Yeah, and you are starting from Germany, and your plan for expansion is Europe, and then other countries, other continents.
In fact, our first client is not even German. So, so yes, we're very active within EU right now, and then we because I am part of this Innovate Finance Women and Powerless. I'm one of the leaders in ESG category. So we're talking to a lot of the potential clients in the UK, and my banking career and my co-founder's banking career comes from London, in the banking industry. So it's a natural trajectory to expand to the UK.
Thank you.
We only have 5 seconds, but yeah, if you want to ask quickly, Roman.
It's about monetization and how do you monetize, and do you plan to be more and more like being more and more fund management, like collecting money, or just being data visualization?
Visualization is just a very small part. Visualization, that part of the white label solution, it's a SaaS model. But if you see our trajectory later on is the data analytics, it's the behavioral science, it's a continuous A/B testing we run with our client, that we observe the behavior of their client, their users, and then we integrate more and more different features to help them to achieve putting private money into sustainability. So that is the bigger part, not just the visualization. That's the very, very small starting part.
I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. But thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. We're now going to bring on Uzo Chuma, managing partner of Anadata. Hi, Uzo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Thank you so much. All right. Does my time start now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm very excited to be here to present Chota to you guys. It's the next generation of addressing and address verification. Why are we solving addressing? It's a problem that affects half the world, what we call the global south, and is estimated to cost businesses about $200 billion a year. Physical address verification and proof of address documents are what we use in the industry today, and it makes the process of address verification very tedious, expensive, and time-consuming, and honestly involves so many people. We can also see how this is a massive barrier to financial inclusion, with KYC and AML requirements being very difficult to be met in these markets because of the poor addressing system, paper-reliant proof of address systems, ease of fraud, and difficulty of update processes. So the solution I introduced to you guys, Chota, is a simple, smart, and secure address verification platform delivered as an API or a web service to our clients. Chota verifies customer addresses, against authoritative data sets, such as utility databases, satellite imagery, cell data records, and last mile delivery data points generated at every point of delivery. We also, at some point, we'll also onboard state and municipality government land registry informations, and we see this process taking us to become, in the future, the largest address database in the world. The current MVP we have developed takes the customer through the process where he imputes a data set from his customer, and when he clicks verify, it runs a semantic text matching and geocoding and mapping, and gives a very instant result that's usable to the customer. We also log this data according to addressing standards so that it is usable in the future. See how this is useful in banking, which will result in faster onboarding processes, easier and reduced cost of KYC, less address fraud, digitized processes to enable eKYC or onboarding via channels, improved accuracy, and all other benefits that come with all this. We think it's a huge market. It's also estimated that, or forecasted that by 2030, it will be a $1.5 billion market for eKYC services alone. But beyond even the Nigerian market size, which is about $400 billion estimated market size, and 600 million unbanked people, beyond even that, we see greater impact in financial inclusion in markets where we serve. We would help the central banks and the governments meet their financial inclusion targets, which for Nigeria, which is our starting use case, is about 8 million adults per year. We are proud of our journey thus far. We started in 2019, and the project itself kicked off in 2021. And we are proud members of the EcoBank FinTech Fellowship, which we were inducted into last year, which will give us an access to Nigerian markets and at least 33 other markets across Africa. And we hope to we seek to kick off our product launch in a few coming weeks with our MVP. The journey ahead is very daunting. It's very scary, I must confess. But as I said earlier, we hope to at some point become the largest address database and the most trusted address database in the world, solving effectively the issue of address verification for KYC in the global south. We are made up of a very strong team. Myself, I have experience in technical sales, GIS and geodata services. I also have a little banking and insurance experience, and I have a strong CTO who is a physicist by first training, but further down the line has over a decade of experience in software development and startup business. We have a project manager. And we also have someone who leads on corporate services, compliance, and legal services. Anadata is a technical services company focused on location data services to deliver insights to our customers at all time. I'll be happy to take your questions to give you more insight to our product. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. That was just on time. Who would like to ask the first question?
Eva first. Let's keep
the circle.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because you are starting now in Nigeria and also in different countries and different countries we have like different GDPR regulation. Did you think about that?
Yes. In our case in Nigeria, we have something called NDPR, which is a domestication of GDPR, and so we are already guided by NIDA on that. NIDA is the agency responsible for that. That is also why we have a lawyer, an IP lawyer on board, so that will guide us through the compliance risks associated.
Okay, because I think that it would be challenged to create the global database because of different regulations. So it's great that you have the team member that it's expert in this case.
Yeah, well, in essence, GDPR is actually the focal point. If you meet GDPR standards, you'll probably be able to get into any market. That's what we find. So somewhere also down the line in our plans, we intend to also get ISO and GDPR certifications on this in the next 6 months.
Roman or Nicholas?
Ready. You're on mute, Nicolas. So you lose your turn.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for that. And just my first question is around what are the main challenges that you are still facing today? For enablement of such a solution.
Oh, great! The data, the data we collect is a lot unstructured, and so the main challenges are around the natural language programming with respect to addresses, especially understanding the uniqueness of Nigerian address data sets and the differences in different databases. But we are solving the problem as we move, and we're excited at where we are. Also, we have another challenge but every challenge we have is usually just machine learning challenge. We have another challenge with our imagery. We intend to do some building detections, and then we've partnered with the company called Planet. They give us daily imagery of the Earth, and they also have building detections AI. That could have been easy for us to just take that and implement, but housing in USA is different from housing in Nigeria. How they look in the picture is quite different. So we got into the NVIDIA Inception program And with that, we are getting a lot of guidance as to how to do all this graphic processing.
Okay, great. So you are developing your own AI algorithm, or you are using ready-to-use algorithm from other companies?
It's a mix. It's a mix. It depends on the operation we're doing. For the easy task, which is the NLP, we are piggybanking on an existing algorithm, open source algorithm, and developing on top of it. But there are some that we will just take out of the shelf and use.
And you are a team of 4 people, from what I understand.
Full time, we are 2, me and my CTO. Part time, the other 2 consult for us because we are very lean at the moment. Due to we are bootstrapping at the moment, but we also have on call-off basis a huge pool of talent. We are lucky to have that. So when we need like a 1-week type of scrum, we get everybody together and work.
Thank you.
Ayuso, many thanks for the presentation. My question is about fraud management. So I don't know how they can fraud on your system, but can you maybe tell me how you play cop and guy frauding on your platform, and how do you manage that over time to keep the address over time?
I can hear you very well. Sorry.
So
I didn't get that.
My question is about fraud. How do you manage fraud on the platform? Which kind of fraud do you manage, and how do you do that over time?
Oh, okay. So there's very simple fraud that currently exists in Nigeria. For example, we had a use case where an agency banking company has this supermarketer. He goes out and gets a lot of agents under him, but he has KYC requirements he needs to fulfill. So he needs to bring, for example, a proof of address, and then he brings the company's proof of address, alters it, and brings it as for these agents, and he's onboarding a lot of people. At the time, they needed to now go recollect the underperforming POS devices. They realized that all the agents somehow all live in the headquarters of the company. So that kind of fraud is impossible with a system that is completely digitized. The system will easily flag any repetitive entries. The system.
I'm afraid we're going to have to end there. I'm afraid, as we're within time. So,
okay. All right.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your pitch, and we will see you later on, hopefully. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. We are now going to bring on Pedro Nelumba from Interest Protocol.
Hi, everyone. Interest Protocol is a token-agnostic Web3 lending protocol. But what is a lending protocol or a lending market in Web3? It's basically a website where you go, you deposit your cryptocurrency, and you can start making money right away because you are lending to others. Or you can just use it as a collateral to borrow other tokens or cryptocurrencies. Aave and Compound, one of the biggest players in the game, they manage around $31 billion of assets under management. But they have a particular problem. They only support an average of 30 assets out of 19,000 assets listed on CoinMarketCap. And if you are a holder of one of the top 400 tokens listed on CoinMarketCap, it's most likely that your token has a market cap of higher than $100 million, and you cannot borrow and lend your token because major protocols, especially lending protocols, only support 10% of these assets. Interest Protocol is trying to solve this problem. We will allow anyone to borrow and to lend any token. But how is that done? Imagine you create a OVH token today. You go to our platform, you can list it, and then you can create a lending market. All the lending markets created by our users gonna share the same 4 assets than the risky asset that you're gonna add. What is our secret sauce? Is that we will allow anyone to do that without coding skills. Moreover, we have an architecture that protects the user's funds from hacks. But how we do that? Instead of having one lending pool with all assets, all lending pools or lending markets will be isolated from each other. So if lending market A is hacked, the lending market B will be saved. But they will be able to borrow and lend from each other because of the assets that they will have in common. For our total addressable market, first we're gonna focus on the largest cryptocurrencies because this is the one that everyone already understands: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, and then we're gonna focus on exotic assets that do not have lending markets, such as interest-bearing token and liquidity provider tokens. We're gonna have a commission-based revenue model in which we're gonna charge a 10% fee of the interest rate paid by the borrower. We are targeting a total value locked of $300 million. This is the same as asset under management, and half of this value will be from borrowing amount, as loans in crypto are based on collateral. For our go-to-market strategy, we're gonna target the already existing communities in the space. But how we gonna achieve that? First, we're gonna partner with a strong audit firm that is gonna audit our contracts and do marketing with us. Then we're gonna sponsor a pool in PancakeSwap, which is one of the largest decentralized exchanges in the space. Users will deposit the PancakeSwap token on a pool and will get our token as reward. We're also gonna have strong partnership with teams such as Chainlink, and we gonna also offer low interest rate opportunities. For example, imagine if you deposit a stable coin, which is a token that follows the value of the dollar. We will allow you to borrow our synthetic stable coin for free while your stable coin is still making money for you. We already have a live beta in which you can deposit Bitcoin and borrow our synthetic stablecoin Dinero. You can also make money by staking our interest token, and voila, you can also create your own lending market. We are raising 2 million through Safe Contract to deploy our mainnet contract and to hire developers and pay for the audits. And we really need these 10,000 because we need to register the copyright of our brand name internationally, and we also need to pay a firm to improve our landing page. We are a team of 4. We have been in crypto space since 2017. Jose started as a financial analyst in Banco Rubic. Then he became a GS developer. Now he's a Solidity developer. Me, myself, I have started medical rescue company in my home country, Angola, that have saved more than 1,000 lives. And I'm now the COO. Now we have 2 more developers. And as Uniswap allow anyone to create markets, we want to be the one that will allow anyone to create lending markets. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Ahead of schedule. So, Roman, did you want to go first?
Thanks, Pedro, for the presentation. Maybe a quick question about the effect of the market. So, if I get it well, you're not impacted if Bitcoin is dropping, or you're impacted. Your fee will be pegged to the value of the asset, or you're not impacted by the value of the asset.
Hello, I'll be taking the questions. Our platform does not rely on the market performance because the interest rates are algorithmically calculated by supply and demand. And in case the price goes down, there is a liquidation system maintained by third parties, which basically margin calls the positions to make sure that there is no bad debt in the system.
Okay, it's margin called. But who's providing the margin call? So it's the bank providing you the system?
The system, everything is decentralized, handled by the contracts. There is no third party that we rely on.
Okay. Nicolas?
Yes. Why did you decide to, regarding the ideation of thank you for the presentation first, but why did you decide to go for this proposition?
Because we have been in space for a while, and we noticed that there was lacking due to the fact that every year there are more and more tokens, and in general, the market capitalization it's increasing over the year. DeFi is about 2 years old, and now it's worth $250 billion from zero in 2 years. So we need a product that is in line with the trend of the industry. You cannot have a product that is limited on the amount of assets it can support if there are more and more tokens being created, and those new tokens are going up in valuation. So it's just you're supposed to go with the industry.
Thank you.
No.
Your target group is just people who already are in the market, or you also planning to educate the market and also just raise this awareness about crypto and the areas?
Thank you. That's a really great question. Yeah, on the first years, we're going to focus solely on DeFi investors, just because it takes time to develop the contracts and it's really esoteric. You really need to understand what a wallet is, how cryptocurrencies work, safeguard how to buy and trade. But in the long term, we plan to develop more of a traditional mobile app on top of the system that is going to hide all the specifics and details, and that's for the general public to basically deposit dollars there, and we handle all the difficult part, that they just get the rewards. But that's really the long-term vision for the project.
Okay. Because you mentioned that the market is huge, but still there is uncovered potential, I think.
Yes, it's really our long-term objective is really to link what we call TradeFi, traditional finance, and DeFi, decentralized finance, combine them together, bring people outside of crypto and expose them to these markets, but to hide all the difficulty in between.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you later on. Thank you, judges. We are now going to bring on Badi Barnett from iProdeco.
Hi everybody. Thank you very much for your time. Actually, I'm the only French company here, so thank you again. So iProdeco is based on an idea that imagine a world where serious bodily injuries can be compensated within weeks or even days. And this is how we created iProdeco. Being part of OVHcloud startup program and French Tech, which is how can I say, an organization of BPI France, a dedicated state-backed bank to innovation, startup, and SMEs. We created iProdeco to predict and optimize financial impacts of declared serious bodily injuries. In fact, if insurers don't compensate serious bodily injury immediately or quickly, it's not because they don't want to, but they cannot. They don't have enough tools, enough information to compensate immediately. Like, for instance, insurers spend several weeks to analyze the injury and propose a compensation. They have the pain of the financial aspects that their own administrative costs represent around 10% of the total injury compensation costs, which is huge. So in this case, probably we can optimize it. The claim managers, meanwhile, don't have enough tools to do their work. In fact, our study shows that around 60% of them are using an Excel-based tool. So it's very not what we expect from them. Each claim manager works according to his own experience, which makes a huge heterogeneity between compensation methods and compensation amounts. And last but not least, employee experience is perceived to be inferior to customer experience, which is not very good if we want to improve the how can I say, the attendance of those populations. And the last stakeholder is the victim, actually, probably the more important one. They are being assisted more and more by specialized lawyers on serious harms, and they wait between 6 to 8 months to get their compensation in case of amicable agreements. Otherwise, they wait more than a year in case of legal actions, which is not what we expect also what they expect from their insurer to help them when they need to. So in this case, we offer two different solutions. The first one is automated processing of mass bodily injury claims, which can improve the productivity of the claim management department. The second one being providing a decision support tool for managers dedicated to serious and complex bodily injury claims. And those two solutions are very useful for Ws actually, directing the injury analysis to the most adequate service and provisioning it as accurately as possible. The first solution is to deal with mass bodily claims through a smart contract approach. In this case, we automatize everything. We just send a secure link to the victim to allow them to do the self-care to get their compensation proposition. We just analyze the documents they provide through our own OCR solution, and we provide them as a compensation amount that they can either accept, and in this case we send to accounting for payments, or refuse, and in this case we just reorient them to a claim manager that has all the informations, all the documents to have a human eye on our proposition. And the results expected are a productivity boosted by 10 times, a global cost divided by 4, and a significantly increased and accelerated compensation time, which can be less than 2 days. And in this case, it's a huge market differentiator. The second solution being providing a solution to a decision support tool, actually, to help the claim manager provide and propose the most reliable and the faster compensation through 3 steps. The first one is calculating the compensation. The second is estimating the disability rate. And the third, using AI, is to predict the financial impacts and optimize the provisions and compensation. First step, we calculate the compensation.
I'm afraid we're going to have to stop you there as you're over time.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe the judges can ask some questions and you could use your slides to clarify.
So can you elaborate more about your team members?
Yes, of course. This. There's 3 of us, actually, childhood friends. Bilal Boussaid is our IT architect and IT expert, and Hussein is being the chartered actuary, so he's the insurance expert of our startup. He has like more than 10 years working in PAC insurance.
Does that answer your question? Nicholas?
So there is three full-time.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. How do you practice your machine learning in regards to the second use cases that you were talking about?
Actually, in this case, we have this is the slide I wanted to
Perfect.
show. We developed our own AI model, actually, and in this case, we just plug it on the database of the insurance, and in this case, they just put the characteristics of the policyholder, of the accident, and eventually the record of its own accidents. And in this case, we provide a prediction by comparing new claims with those of our self-learning database. So in this case, each time the claim manager works on a file and change a single value, we just, how can I say, just, on l'enregistre,
Register, okay, recorded.
You recorded exactly, and in this case, we are able to have a huge database which can anticipate the future. Actually, if it started with like low-level information, we are able to tell the insurer that be careful. This injury can be at the end when you have all those informations you need. You will be you are practically being you will probably pay like 1 million, 2 million, $10 million, you know,
Okay.
just with some few information.
And can you extend it to other insurance business, or is it really so focused and so particular, or you can extend to other kind of insurance?
Yes, actually, we can do it. We can predict like the all injuries that are incurred but not yet reported. So in this case, using the data, even though the insurance doesn't know any single information on it, and they don't know even that they are incurred, we can provide the anticipation, the prediction. So in this case, yes, we are working on the reinsurance optimization. So it's not only PNC, but we can target other actors, and we can also work like using data on all other PNC insurance solution.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
Any more questions, or are we happy to move on? Okay. Thank you very
Merci,
much.
Badi.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Okay, so we'll move on to our final picture today, which is from Christian Pogan, who's the CEO of Polymore.
Hello, nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Hey.
That's perfect. Perfect. Hi, I'm Christian Pogan. I'm really glad to be presenting you Polymore. We do automatic detection of wrongly sorted waste. And I'm sure that all of us here know that plastic pollution is around us as we speak. And it also increases by the day because plastic production increases by the day. And actually, what we found in Romania is that this problem has at its root the waste collection processes which are deficient. And actually, we have seen that 70% of all waste collected in Romania, which is recyclable, has contamination in it. And by contamination, I mean its waste streams are mixed together and they incur financial costs for the waste collecting company in order to decontaminate and then to be processed. So we tackle this issue head on with a harder and softer product, which is installed in the fleets of waste collecting companies exactly onto the back of the waste collecting truck. So it is comprised of hardware that we have developed internally in order to be robust and as resilient as possible for this environment, for the waste collecting truck. And it has a visible spectrum camera with which we collect data each minute on each route, and also GPS data and other parameters which are important. But most importantly, we focus on computer vision on this particular type of data in order to detect what materials are being unloaded onto the truck and if the waste is done properly or not. So in order to do this, we classify the bins which are into the back of the truck, as you can see here, and also the materials unloaded after the bin is dumped into the truck. We, by this, have a means of data at the point of each generator, and this is hugely important for the waste collecting companies. In order to process this, we gather 60 gigabytes per day per truck and process it locally right now, and we are moving into the cloud infrastructure in order to do it at scale. And we offered good and bad feedback for the process of sorting in order to improve it, and also relevant data for each day for each truck for the company. Currently, we work as a subscription model per month, and per truck we charge 800 euros, which includes the daily reports, but also the installment and maintenance of one unit of our product into the fleet of the customer. And currently we have 15 such products installed in central and western Romania with 3 clients. 2 of them are actually paying clients, and we're really glad that we add value into their lives on a daily basis. And so far we have a good financial road because we have started bootstrapping, we have invested in creating our own data set, and also we have been backed by climate programs, and we still own 100% of the equity. We are really looking forward to testing our most important hypothesis as we speak to see the homogeneity and the different types of products in the waste in Central Europe. So we want to move to Italy to implement with the clients that we have started discussing with, and also to make our footprint better on the biodegradable waste. Usually when someone thinks about technology in recycling, they think of recycling centers, but we want to address the problem at its root, the waste collection processes. We're really glad that a lot of startups are working in waste processing. Surely for the input, regardless of the technology, we want to unlock this bottleneck, the waste collection processes. And the market is growing as we speak because, as I said, the material market is growing, and we also address the European waste collecting market. We want up until the end of the year to have a footprint in Romania onto the fleets of our clients, and we also want to expand in the area and also in Central Europe with the in order to be more impactful. And by impact, I mean we are aiming high. We want by 2027 to increase the average recycling rate in Europe, because we know exactly what is happening wrongly in Romania, which is one of the poorest in results in recycling rates, and we have seen the problems on the field by ourselves. Our team is one which is comprised of technical and economic specialists. I really have a full trust in our team that we can deliver the solution, and we have a daily passion for recycling, which we want to see improve, especially in this area. Thank you so much for the attention. I'm really looking forward to any of your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm running ahead of schedule. So,
thank you.
Roman, do you want to start with us?
Thanks, Bogdan, for the presentation. My main question is, I'm not so clear about what is the main driver or pain point for a customer. Is it because they're going to earn more money because they have a better rate, or it's to put pressure to the people that prepare the garbage? How do they use your data then to create value?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, because we thought of, even though we might apply the technology, the results and the processes would not change that much because we might miss a link. But actually, this data gives them direct power to not only address the customers and incentivize financially, or maybe increase their bill if they're doing the improper sorting, but also onto their fleets, their trucks, with having this data of how much purity or impurity is inside it, they can manage it better. So they know which clients to address at which times, how to manage their fleet better, and how to do the things into the center, which they're being clients for and being paid for the waste they put in the center, and their schemes are better put at work through the data.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
How do you plan to build your uniqueness? I mean, you mentioned about some startups who are working on similar solutions as competitors, and what's your plan to differentiate?
Yeah, this is also an excellent question, and we tackled it quite recently, and we mitigated it as much as we could with the data that we have so far. We are looking actually to not only be the technology which triggers an alarm when something wrong goes into the sorting process. We also want to have the courage and are looking right now for the leverages and the schemes in the waste collecting market to give financial rewards directly to generators which are doing a proper job. So we want to be the intermediary by using the technology to have an encouragement and education rewarded by ourselves.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Nicholas?
Yes, thank you again for this presentation. Also, I have a question in regards to, so it's clear about the way to monetize your solution, but when it comes to the life cycle of the hardware behind, because I think that there is a kind of life cycle for hardware. We are also working on this one within OVHcloud. How do you manage it?
This is actually this up until March this year has been like our weakest point, because with the specialists that we had in the team, but we separated our ways, we reached a maximum 5-month life cycle for a product, which is really bad. And the ones that you saw in the presentation and the images for the new product, which is version number 4, actually has an expectancy, and we want to test it out as much as possible in the present to see if it lasts for 1.5 years at minimum.
Okay.
So we have a lot of factors in it, like vibration, heat, and cold in the winter. So a lot of variations in the parameters. And we want to mitigate with this version of the product as much as possible, but we're still in continuous growing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any more questions?
Maybe one silly question, but if the bag are not transparent, how do you see what is in the bag?
Yeah, this is also like really interesting and relevant. And this was like our first hypothesis that it's a go or no go. Actually, we are not really that much concerned with the waste in the bag, if they're transparent or not, because a lot of surprising contamination occurs, and large contamination in the means of other objects which are clearly visible are really more important. So it's like a spectrum of contamination, not a binary or 0 or 1. So we tackled firstly with the computer vision the large objects, which are contaminants and clearly visible. And for this ones, we iterate to the smaller ones.
Clear. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that was our fifth and final pitch. So I hope you enjoy that, judges.
Very much. Thanks.
Well, for the next part, you will now be going off into a private judging session to decide on who will be crowned the winner later on. And we'll be hearing from Michel Paulin, your CEO of OVHcloud, at 4 p.m. UK time. So thank you to all finalists and also to all applicants that responded. We had over 230 applications globally in a very short period. So thank you very much. We're now going to hear from our next group of speakers, and we'll be bringing them on very shortly. And I will be chairing a session called Securing Pilots and Contracts in the Private and Public Sector. So let's bring on our panelists. We have Chris McKee, who's Business Development Manager and Innovation Manager at Leeds Teaching Hospitals NHS Trust Research and Innovation Team. Vima Punde, Program Director of the National Institute for Health Research Surgical MedTech Cooperative. David Priestley, Chief Digital Officer of Vitality. And we also have Gaitha Manala from Siemens, who leads on software development. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I really appreciate you being here with us. So we've only got 25 minutes, maybe a bit longer. So if we start with some brief introductions. Chris, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thanks, Costa. So I'm pleased to meet everyone. It's great to be here. I'm Dr. Chris McKee. As Costa says, I'm a Business Development Innovation Manager based at the Leeds Teaching Hospital NHS Trust. So I'm on the NHS side of the innovation arm. I'm kind of one of those large organizations that I'm responsible as part of those large organizations you'll be dealing with if you're in the healthcare sector. And it's a pleasure to meet you. I won't take up too much time explaining the role in more detail.
Great, thanks for that. And V?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Vima Punde. I'm the Program Director for the NHR Surgical MedTech Cooperative, and we basically support the development and evaluation of medical technologies for use in the NHS.
Great, thank you very much, V. And Dave?
Yeah, my name's Dave, Digital Officer for Vitality. We're a life organisation in the
I think you connect. I think Dave's having an issue with his connection at his end. Maybe if Dave can join and rejoin, we can get that sorted. Gaitha, do you want to give an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I think if Chris can turn off his camera, it might help as well. That's why I'm not using my camera. So my name is Gaitha Manala. I'm a lead software engineer at the innovation team within Unix Traffic. We carved out of Siemens Mobility. So we are now an entity stands on its own and deals with traffic. mainly cars and traffic lights. So my role within the group is to assess the maturity of new products on the market and introduce them to the business if there is any benefit in developing either new product or improving the current product that we have.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. I think Gemma's working in the background with Dave to see if he can close his applications and rejoin us. So we'll just go straight into the roundtable, and hopefully Dave can rejoin in a second. So I decided to bring you all here because we've all worked with you in some way, and you've also worked with a number of startups and scale-ups to really bring them into your organizations to have discussions around pilots and contracts over the years. So the first question I really have is to what extent do you think startups and scale-ups can successfully work with larger organizations in the private and public sector? I probably would like to start with Chris on that one.
Hi all. Sorry, just making sure the connection is all right.
Yes, your connection's fine. And I think we've got Dave that's rejoined us, hopefully. Dave, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, before,
Great.
should we just do an introduction to Dave, because we were just about to start the first question. So Dave, why don't you give a bit of introduction to yourself?
Sure, yeah, sorry, apologies for that. I'll be very quick. Yeah, my name is Dave Priestley. I'm the Group Chief Digital Officer for Vitality in the UK. So we provide a range of insurance products in UK markets, health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. And yeah, my role is to kind of oversee all the digital products and the customer experience for the group in the UK.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. It seems the connection would have been on your side, not on ours. So I'll go back to the first question. So Chris, to what extent do you think that startups and scale-ups can successfully work with larger organizations in the private and public sector? And feel free to use any experience or case study that you might have.
Certainly. So I think there's, from a public sector perspective at least, I think there's a lot of opportunity for scale-ups and startups to work there. My own experience has been that the engagement side is quite simple if you can navigate the system very well. So what you'll find as a scale-up startup, whether you're in the UK or abroad, is it's a very complex landscape here. There's a lot of different entry points into the NHS, whether that's through the NIHR, through the NHS trusts themselves, different research organizations. What I would suggest as a bit of advice is find the people like myself, really, who sit in the center of that whole spider web, who can navigate you through that system to actually save you from having to do all of that work. So in terms of actually engaging them, that if you identify the right stakeholders, you will not have any issues in terms of having at least that initial conversation. And then people who are in those innovation roles, like the roles that I'm in, can then get you in touch with the relevant clinical teams or the relevant stakeholders that you need to talk to. Now, that's no guarantee that they will necessarily want to pursue the opportunity further. This is all part of the collaboration pathway. But should they do so, then you'll find it's a relatively straight line to go from, okay, we want to work with you. You're addressing an unmet need in the system. You've made it very clear that you understand the benefits to, in terms of health. It would be patients and the NHS as a whole, and then we can then support you on that journey to getting funding or moving towards the relevant level of the pathway that you're on. So there are quite a lot of experiences of successful engagement from my side. There's too many really to go over. I'm engaging with about 150 companies a year. And I'd say quite a large number of those do successfully engage with us at that first stage. I would say only about 10% of them really get to the point of where a project emerges, but that's just because of the nature of innovation and whether it fits within the system or not. So I hope that's a helpful bit of information for you all.
Yeah, I think that's very, very useful. And you've been involved in a number of our initiatives and speaking to a number of startups, and sometimes, as I'm sure V will pick up on, sometimes it's about, do they address unmet needs in the NHS? Sometimes is it timing? Do they have the right Are they at the right stage of maturity? V, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Chris has covered quite a lot because we work quite closely with Chris. So, I mean, the bit that I work on is, likewise, it's a public sector. So we focus mainly on the NHS. So I can't really comment on the private sector. But it's, I think the most important thing is if you are trying to get something into the healthcare sector, is it's got to be cost effective, and it's also got to demonstrate cost benefit. So, quite often what we tend to see is, there's a real focus, especially for startups, and I can understand that, where the focus really is on getting the funding so that they can continue the business, because the business model might actually be very sound. But when you're actually looking at getting something adopted and used by the people that you want to use, that bit might not actually work out. So there tends to be a mismatch. So I think from our end, we're definitely looking at it from the perspective of, first of all, is this technology useful? Is it a copycat technology? And by copycat, what I do mean is a good example in our particular area, you've got a lot of things that are coming in as AI. You've got a lot of software programs coming in. And you've also got a lot of wound dressing type technologies coming in, and they all look the same. There's nothing to differentiate them. And in terms of securing the pilots, it becomes very difficult, because what you are actually you're not presenting anything that, or you're not highlighting the value that your technology can actually provide to the healthcare sector. And then in terms of stumbling blocks as well, what you tend to get is, once again, I think it goes back to that focus in getting the funding from the investors, is there is a pressure to go to market really quickly, and that can actually scupper efforts in terms of actually getting those public-private partnerships going, because then people tend to miss out on steps, or tend to think, well, this is not important anymore because we can actually just go straight to market at this point. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually not the case, especially if you're looking at an organization like a public hospital using your particular technology.
Okay, great. And how about a private sector perspective, Dave? To what extent do you think startups and scale-ups can successfully work with larger private sector organizations?
Yeah, no, I think there's lots and lots of opportunities there in the private sector. I mean, I think I'm sure you'll find a huge variety of different ways in which different organizations approach and work with startups. I mean, from our perspective, particularly in the kind of healthcare aspects of our products and services, I mean, I think that one of the things we're always trying to kind of balance here is the desire to gain that competitive advantage in our markets and look for those, kind of real innovative ideas that could play a kind of meaningful role in our proposition and give us some competitive advantage. Balance that with ensuring that we have the confidence that any product or proposition is going to be performant and scalable and, kind of a good enough standard to put in front of our customer base and to kind of trust from a kind of servicing and experience point of view. So that's often the kind of tension there is we see lots of good ideas from startup organizations, and I think typically that would be proactive on behalf of the startup approaching us and tell, kind of marketing their own ideas and IP, if you like. And we're generally kind of scanning those different propositions to see, what are the ones that are really complementary from a strategic point of view, and we can implement with a high level of confidence around the performance and the experience. And I think finding that balance is the key for us.
Absolutely. I think there's some good similarities there, but also differences. I think that as you rightly point out, sometimes it's timing, and sometimes also we have to remember that in larger organizations, there's more processes, regulation that has to be adhered to, etc. And at the earlier stage of a startup's development, they don't have that in place. So sometimes it's about getting that right, particularly in regulated industries. So I totally appreciate everything that you're adding. How should larger organizations that are thinking about getting into this think about approaching the process? Would you suggest that they just get involved in a startup event, for example, or they should just create an incubator, an accelerator? There was an influx of accelerators a few years ago. I mean, Chris, how you've done the innovation pop-up recently? How should an organization go about it?
So there's a few different ways that need to be approached with this, in my opinion. So there's an external approach and an internal approach. So externally is going to be quite reasonably easy because there's so much activity in the startup world. So yes, go to these events, attend things that, of course, Impact Ventures are doing. For us, we launched this the new sort of an NHS first scheme really called the Innovation Pop-Up. Which is a central home base to centralize the activity of healthcare innovation within our trust. And it gives us a brand that we can latch onto. And it has kind of a bit of a coffee culture. Come in, sit down, let's talk about things. But the only way that can really function is if leadership is on board, or if you start to create a community of innovation champions within your organization. So externally, yes, get out there as an organization, see what's there, see the art of the possible, generate interest and put yourself on the map. But internally, there's a lot of work that you need to do in order to get the relevant staff. So this is obviously from the NHS perspective, so that they can actually be driving this work forwards. So if you have a research and innovation team at your hospital, or then it helps and try and separate the two out, because innovation and research aren't necessarily the same thing. You need someone who can be your front person to go out and share these opportunities, but then bring them to your staff. You really need to have upper leadership engaged with this in order to succeed with it. The reason why I think we're quite successful as a trust and other trusts that have been successful are similar is because you have the CMO, CEO, and CSO of your organization, if you have one, on board with this kind of work. And then it filters down from there and it stimulates that culture. Whereas otherwise, people who work within your organization who are key to the collaboration, they won't feel like they have the support to do it. So there's a sort of two arms to that. Now, if you're lucky enough to already have that sort of culture and that innovation team embedded, even if it's a small one, then you're in a really good position to engage with that startup community. And my advice is just network as much as you can. Get people to know that you're there, that your door is open, that you're approachable, that you will look at opportunities, and that you'll be able to take things forwards. And then when you have those case studies of success, then you can build on that. That certainly worked for us. But don't underestimate the task of getting your internal community on board with you, because it's all part of the same vision. If you do that and you have your champions behind the scenes, you'll find the process considerably easier.
Indeed, and I think everybody that's on screen today is a champion within their organizations, and that's why we work with all of them within our SuperConnect competition, past and present. So it makes absolute sense. I'm going to see if we can hear from Gaitha. Oh, I think she's come off screen. I know she's having a connection issue at her end. How about V? Do you have anything to add from that?
No, I think the only thing I can add in addition to that is, as you mentioned, there's lots of accelerators and incubators that are all sprouting up, and it's important to actually go to the events. Even if it's not your particular area, it's just interesting to see where the direction of travel is in. In particular for us with the National Institute for Health and Care Research, we host a lot of events and a lot of webinars. And those are quite important for startups within the medtech and health tech sector, because what you start to get an indication of is actually what is important to clinicians and what they actually want to get involved in, because that information is usually not easy to get. There isn't like a particular website where you can go and figure that out. But within those particular events and webinars, you start to get an understanding of the problems that they're facing. And then that can actually save you headaches in the long run, because you start to get an understanding of where the real unmet need is, not what you as a startup perceive the unmet need to be. Because one of the things we tend to see is a lot of startups with, the technology is brilliant. You can't fault it. It's really cutting edge. But if nobody's going to use it, or if an NHS trust decides it's going to use its internal systems and it's sticking to that, there's no way that technology is going to go in, especially if they've got concerns around information governance, for example, or if it needs to then link in with other NHS data frameworks. All of those things need to be understood actually before you complete the development of anything. So attending those events is actually very useful, because it gives you an indication of the challenges, at least what public sector organizations are facing.
I think that's a very, very good point. Dipping your toe in the water, getting a feel for what's going on, and also involving your team so that they can, as Chris says, you need champions and you need buy-in internally and energy. So I think that's important. We'll try Gaitha again. Gaitha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, guys. I think it's not working on my laptop, so I logged in using my phone, so hopefully it will be more stable.
No problem. Well, I'll just ask you, in terms of larger organizations going ahead and collaborating with startups and scale-ups, how should they approach the process if they want to bring innovation internally, or they want to run a hackathon or accelerator? I know at Siemens you've been running some internal hackathons, for example.
Yeah, that's correct. It's very it's a nice question. It's quite difficult to answer, because each company, they will have their own processes. However, with big organization, even if you have a specific process, it would be really hard to do it very quickly. It's just because the way how big organization usually operate. But if you're living in an ideal place, then the easiest way is to have a clear process about why do we need to engage with a small company, whether startup or scale up. What's the benefit? What's the business? What are we going to bring to the big organization? How are we going to get benefit? And how are we going to protect the company that we are going to be working with? One of the processes that we usually use is, as you mentioned, you've got, for example, a problem to solve. We put it out there and we invite companies to take part in to solve that problem, and then present their finding back to us. And based on the solution and the discussion, and of course that will give us visibility of what's out there. We give us chance actually not just to assess the technology and how they solve the problem and what they can offer, but at the same time we can see how do they work, how do they operate, how to present the solution back to us, and that will help us as well. Are they suitable in terms of culture, in terms of personality? Is it suitable for our culture and the way we operate? After that, you decide who do you want to work with, and then you have to go through all the legal stuff, which is like all the paperwork. How do they can protect their solution? How can we benefit from them? How do we know, for example, that solution is not going to be go and sold to our competitors? So all the legal as next step legal people will get involved and sign that contract between the big organization and the small organization. Step 3 will be, where are we going after we've worked together? And that will be, for example, are we going to buy that company? Is there going to be any exclusivity in terms of the solution? Or are we going to take that solution and integrate it in our product? Or are we going to develop a new one? So it's a very long process, but usually I'm just giving you like an overview about the process that we follow as Siemens. And as I said in my introduction, we are Unix traffic. We carved out of Siemens, and we currently being bought by Atlantia, is an Italian company. So we are no longer a Siemens business, which means we have to develop our own process and how to deal with the small companies. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm so sorry about what happened earlier, but yeah, if there are any questions that I didn't manage to answer before because of the bad network, please, I'm happy to answer them now.
that's fine. I will raise one in a second, but I will say that Gareth is correct. Having that process is really important, and also sometimes dipping your toe in the water, maybe by partnering with something else. Siemens and Gaither and John were involved in our SuperConnect for Good competition last year, and had a number of companies pitching to them, and went off with one company to pilot that, and looked at others as well. So sometimes it's just dipping your toe in the water. And Dave, I wondered if you wanted to add anything to that as well, about approaching the process.
I guess only. I think I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think organisations will approach this stuff in different ways, and there's lots of different ways of successfully achieving it. For me, I think the kind of one of the key things to try and work out from the start is, why, what's the sort of strategic objective? What is it you're trying to achieve through that kind of engagement with startups? Are you trying to, for example, find organizations who have some brilliant ideas and IP that you could ultimately bring into your organization? Or are you looking for a very specific feature or product that you can kind of incorporate in some way? Or is it a technology kind of capability that you need, or a skill set or something like? So there's kind of lots of different sort of strategic kind of objectives that may be associated with this kind of activity. And I think it's really important that as an organization you're clear about what it is you're trying to achieve in that respect. From a vitality point of view, we are, back to what Chris was saying, we're kind of fortunate in a way that culturally, innovation is just a massive part of our business. It's kind of part of our DNA. What that means is that we're typically quite focused on our own internal capabilities to execute that, but there are always gaps in what we can do ourselves. And typically that is in quite specific targeted aspects, whether that's a technology gap or whether it's a propositional gap. And so I think one of the things I would always encourage kind of startups or scale-ups to be thinking about when engaging with private sector organizations, making sure you kind of understand what their strategic goals are. And then I would really encourage people to start small, and explore pilots and these kind of experimental sort of partnerships and opportunities. Because generally speaking, this is a bit of a generalization, but I think if there's a kind of a bigger initiative at play, a bigger requirement, a large organization like us is probably going to go and look for a more of an enterprise solution and go through a robust process and RFPs and all of those. And startups and scale-ups will struggle to follow that kind of a rigorous process. Where we've seen success in those kind of partnerships is on a much narrower, targeted basis, where we can set up a pilot, experiment, benefit from the kind of agility that a small startup has, that a larger partner wouldn't be able to support in the same way. So I think where we've done that, I think that those are the best examples of success. I think in a vitality context is where we've come into a relationship trying to solve quite a narrow problem, really kind of making sure we understand what that problem is, and being quite flexible and iterative in how we go about developing that solution, and really working in sort of partnership around the evolution of the solution, if you like, together. And then that, if it's successful, that will inevitably grow into something much larger. And there's a number of examples where we've started off working with a startup business, and they've scaled their business with us, but not necessarily, that wasn't necessarily where we've ended up isn't necessarily what we started out thinking we were going to be doing, if you know what I mean. So I think that kind of flexibility and agility and starting small is, from my experience, super important with these kind of relationships.
I think the pilot side is what you raise is important on both sides. It's important for a company to be able to see, or an organization to be able to see the value on maybe a sample data set, etc., without bringing any risk into it. but also it's good for the startup as well. It's a process of, it's a getting to know you process. You know, do we like each other? Does this work? Does it work on a small data set? Can we then test it on a larger real data set, etc.? And I think that that everybody on this has had that experience of that. And you go on to a really important point now, Dave, which is, you know, what can startups do to approach the process? So I think those tips are very, very important. And Gaither, I guess, since you've not been able to answer the first question, what do you think, in your opinion, how should startups and scale-ups approach that process? What tips can you give to them in the audience of working with a larger organization?
I would say I've worked previously with small companies. I was working with the big organization, and I went and I supported a couple of small companies, and I went back to big organizations. So I've seen I've seen all the challenges that small companies are going through. I would say, first of all, for the small companies, is know your industry. And have few companies that you are targeting. Lots of companies in specific sectors. For example, I'm going to just give an example. Oil company. A few years ago, they went through the process where they got rid of their innovation team and departments to save some money. So what does that mean? It means in that industry, they have now gap within their organization. They lost that capability, which means if they have funding or the government has forced them to do some innovative solution, whether it's environmental or anything else, they have to go out there and find the right company to support them with that. One of the companies that I worked with, they positioned themselves in a really nice position where they have an insight what's happening. They understand the market, they understand the regulation, and they know that these type of businesses, they need small companies to work with them. So first of all, they understood the industry, they targeted specific companies, and the third thing, they knew certain people within that organization to build that channel, build that bridge. So if there is any demand or need from these big company, they know who to talk to. That's step one. Step two is to be able to prove yourself, prove that you've got skills, that you've got capability, you can deliver on time, and you are working in an agile way, and you are there to support them and help them and show them results and be honest with them. If you can solve the problem, just say we can solve it, and it's going to take that long to be able to solve it, and it will cost us that amount of money. So with the company that I worked with in the past, that was their key success. Other type of companies, they usually go with Innovate UK funding. Again, that is another approach they can use, and that will put them in really good position where they are visible to big companies. Again, the most important thing is you know your channel, how to approach these big companies and prove yourself in the market. Once you've done that, then I think companies will come and talk to you in order to use your services. Just one thing to add here, there is a still risk of working with small companies, and I don't know if we have time, I can mention a few things. One of them is usually with small companies, you are depending on certain people. Like small companies will be like, I'm talking about tens of people, I'm not talking about 50 or 100, which means if you've got a key person delivering that work, there is a risk of that person might leave that small company somewhere else, which means you will lose that that valuable person within your company. So there is a still risk working with small companies, but I think because they're agile and they're specialized in specific area, that will make them a target for big companies to work with.
Excellent. And Chris and V, to close this off, do you want to add any points on that? Any tips for startups and scale-ups?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it does depend on the nature of the technology, but from a healthcare provider point of view, first of all, the word pilot was used before, and I agree pilots are important, but my advice for you as a startup or scale-up would be pilot with purpose. It's very easy to get trapped in what we call the eternal pilot. Make sure that your pilot is there to lead on to something more. and that you have a very clear direction where you want to go with your partner. When you approach the organization, make it very clear what your goals are, what your technology does, and always in health, always remember to put the patient and the healthcare workers at the forefront of your messaging. If you don't do that, then you're not speaking the same language. Be flexible. The market will tell you where to go. Your initial idea of where technology will fit might actually change if the market is it tells you otherwise. I think Dave actually said something kind of similar to this before. What they set out to do in the beginning with a company actually ended up changing towards the end. Have that flexibility in mind and listen to the professionals who are going to be using your technology. Your end users will tell you what you need to do. And that's kind of it, really. There's a lot more to discuss. This is a very big topic, and I'd be very happy to follow up with anybody who wishes. But that would be some of my initial hints and tips.
Fantastic. And V, do you want to close this up?
Yeah, sure. I think the big thing, sort of to close it off, considering I think a lot of the key points have been mentioned, is to manage expectations. And this goes through to everything. So even if you're applying for funding, you can put in the best funding application ever and it can score 96% and you can still not be funded. So it's really important to manage expectations and not assume that just because you've got enthusiasm in initial discussions, that's going to translate into speed of activities and completion of certain tasks. We see the disappointment a lot, especially for the health tech and medtech startups. But it's really important to consider that when those particular large organizations are giving you their perspective and their point of view, you might disagree with it, but if they are your ultimate target market, you do have to listen to it and you do have to consider how you are going to do that. And that might mean redrawing the line, as Chris and Dave have alluded to. You might start off in one particular area and end up in another one, or it might mean you actually partner up with another organization that has got nothing to do with your particular subject area, but what they do have is expertise in something that could actually help your particular technology to take off and to grow. And one example that we had of this is, where a group of surgeons were trying to develop something, a particular technology to use in developing countries, and actually they managed to partner up with a satellite communications company, because what we actually found is if you do want to operate in remote places, you need to have a very good connection. And apparently really good connections can come from satellites. They can be expensive, but you can find a way of making that available to the people that need it. So be open to collaborations, be open to suggestions, and definitely manage your expectations. It's not always going to go the way you think it will.
Excellent. Well, I think there's some fantastic points that have been raised on here, and we've only in a short time we've picked on kind of both sides of the equation, both for startups approaching the process, but also corporates as well. And to really summarize, I mean, I think it's been shown that the pilot's good, but again, like Chris said, you need to have kind of a start and an end, and it needs to lead on to something. You would hope as a startup it leads on to a partnership, a contract, and then obviously if that goes well, potential investment or acquisition. Addressing unmet needs, within healthcare organizations or within larger organizations. Make sure that you're actually solving a need, because it's like V said, you could have all the best innovation in the world, but if there isn't a problem there that needs solving, the other side won't be receptive. And for the larger organizations, like we've said, dip your toe in the water, establish a process, get champions on board, as Chris and Dave and Gaitha have said. And maybe even without blowing our own trumpet, maybe even partner with an organization that can super connect you to the right innovation as well, or co-design something with you. And for the startup or scale up, really setting out what you're looking for and managing expectations on both sides of the coin. So that's the end of our session. For all those that are keen to connect with our panelists, just email Gemma at impact-ventures.com and she'll be happy to introduce you. Equally, we have Chris V and Dave that are involved in our current SuperConnect for Good competition. And they have various prizes and evaluation of innovation and funding and resources on offer. So if you want to check that out, just go to superconnectforgood.org, which Gaitha was involved in last year. So thanks very much, panelists. You're welcome to stick around and see some of the other pitches that are happening. But I really appreciate your time to join us. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks for having us. Thanks.